Okay, we live.
All right, Shalom. This is the brothers of GMS New Orleans coming at you with another live lesson. But before we get started, as always, we're going to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to you, sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure to the end. And, to the few sincere Aqua diligently learning in silence, Shabbat Shalom. And the premise of this lesson is pretty much just being content in whatever situation, the Lord has put you in. Because, the elder brother on the video as well has been saying, April has been a hell of a month. You've had demons messing with brothers, all kind of shit going on. I recently got in a situation where it was like just one thing after another, a car incidences, and it's like, man, shit, it just all happened within the span of a couple of days. But you know, I just took a deep breath and sat back on it, and one of the situations has worked itself out. And the funny thing is that the insurance people, the other person's insurance, their phone number had 144 in it. So when that was the case, I was like, okay, so I know the Lord manifested this situation to see what I was going to do, and the Lord came through on it. And that mindset is going to become ever more imperative going forward, because times are only going to get more dire out here. I just recently did a lesson on how you should be vigilant out here, because the spirits are getting bold. They're not just talking shit to brothers from a distance. They're coming and getting in brothers physical spaces and whatnot. So with that being the case, we have to be even more in the spirit and rely on Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to get us out of these situations. And this lesson is also a bit of a laying back off of a lesson the younger brother Kabar did on be content in whatever situation you're in, because we can't get out of whatever situation the Lord puts us in. But what we can do is rely on the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding He's allowed us to understand, to know that, when we do get in these situations, hey, we just got to fall back on that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and move accordingly to the ways of the Lord. And hey, you may have to sit in that situation for a minute, but if you endure and you don't have a carnal or fleshly moment, which, much easier said than done. But as long as you hold on, the Lord is going to get you out of that situation.
Right.
Yes, something you want to say,
I have one, but I'm gonna wait till after we get these other two.
Con.
I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it in the scriptures, and I'm gonna read it in the GNT, which is its own point.
Con.
Yeah, but this is Philippians chapter 4, verse 11. It says, "Now that I speak in respects of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am." It's like wherewith to be content.
Con. And this is the Apostle Paul speaking. And when we read all throughout the New Testament, the Apostle Paul went from one, situation to another situation, from calamity to calamity, so to speak. But, the Apostle Paul relied on Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And while the situations did get bad, he got through them and remained, content in the situation he was in, relying on Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, which again, as it said, not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned. And we're in that state of learning right now. In whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. Whether you have those moments where the Lord has you up and takes the heat off, or whether the Lord puts you in the frying pan, so to speak. You got to learn to deal with the fire, the coolness of the hotness of the fire and the coolness of the water, and just rely on Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to get you through it, and really contemplate on the situation you're in. Am I in this because I haven't been in the spirit much lately? Or even if I prayed for the Lord to put me, give me patience, help me with anger issues or things like that, the Lord will answer your prayers, but it may not be the way you think He's going to answer it. He's going to answer it through what? more often than not testing you in that situation to truly build that patience and endurance.
I get Baba Gashar. Can I get the I'm gonna get
Khan, you got it.
the example of what you just mentioned with Paul. All right. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse. I'm gonna start at 21. It says, I speak as concerning reproach, as though we have been weak, howbeit, wherein soever any is bold, I speak foolishly. I am bold also. Are they Hebrews? I am, so am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they seed of Abraham? So am I. All right. And it says, after the ministers of Mashiach, I speak as a fool. I more in labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequent, in debts. What is in debts ought?
Off, meaning, often. And if
Yeah.
I could say real quick, before the Apostle Paul says, some of the tribulations he went through, he's pretty much saying, I'm a Hebrew of the Hebrew. He was trained under Gamaliel. He was a Pharisee. He was a Hebrew of the Hebrew. But what? The Lord put him through trials and tribulations, and he was given a heavy spirit by Yahushua. So if a man with such a reputation as the Apostle Paul went through it, how much more should we expect it to be so? To how's it go? To whom much is given, much is required. Roughly paraphrasing, we have the keys to the kingdom. We have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of everything out here. And we're gonna get that 2 Corinthians 12 too, where the Apostle Paul said, with all this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, he was given a thorn in the flesh. The Lord has to give you that balance. You can't just be super duper in the truth without going through anything out here. That wisdom would puffeth you up. So the Lord put you through these trials and tribulations to temper everything out here and keep you even killed. Not too proud, not too arrogant, and even not too low in the spirit when you do go through things. Again, whatever situation you find yourself in, just be content with it. You're going to have your highs, you're going to have your lows. But as long as you wake up every morning with this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in your mind, the name of the Father and the Son, and knowing who you are, and the understanding of these scriptures, hey, it's not bad at all.
It says 24, it says, of Jews 5 times receive I stripes, save one. Thrice was I beaten with rods. Once was I stoned. Twice I suffered shipwreck. At night and day have I been in the deep, in journeyings often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the heathen, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren. All right. That was the point, though.
Khan. But hey, the Apostle Paul was going through, many of the things he went through, for, the faith. And as it says in, I believe it's Hebrews 12, we have not suffered unto death. So, more brothers than not have not experienced close to anything what the Apostle Paul went through. So with these situations we're in, yeah, it's tough for what your lot is, but hey, it could be a hell of a lot worse. But again, you have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua in you, and the guidelines on how to move and navigate through things, to be content in the situation that you're in.
Yeah, I go back to Philippians. This is Philippians 4:11. It says, now that I speak in respects of want, for I have learned, all right, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to abase and know how to abound. Everywhere I am, everywhere in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need.
Khan, I know both how to be abased, when I'm in a low position, to take the low, and I know how to abound, When I'm up, I know how to stay up. Everywhere and in all things, I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. Like Bruce Lee had with that famous quote, you got to be like water. Any channel or any vessel water finds itself in, it takes the shape of it. Meaning what? You're adaptable out here.
Yeah, any crack or crevice, man.
Con.
I got that. I meant to say this too because I had it mixed up. I mean to put the Philippians 4 in the GNT. It goes on point.
Con.
This is the same scripture right here in the GNT. All right, it says, and I am saying this because I hold on. This Philippians chapter 4 verse 11. No, was it? Yeah, 11. My bad. It says, and I am saying this because I feel neglected, for I have learned to be satisfied with what I have. I know what it is to be in need and what it is to have more, even enough. I have learned this secret so that anywhere at any time I am content, whether I am full or hungry, whether I have too much or too little. Yeah, that was it.
Hey, Con, the Apostle Paul being like water, and we should be like water as well. Whatever situation we find ourselves in, hey, be content in it, and be spiritually adaptable, because Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai hasn't cast you off. You're just going through the trials, and tribulations which aren't uncommon to men. And as it says, everything that you go through, is accomplishing your brethren as well. We're all going through it out here, but what? We all have this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to know that it's a trial, it's a test, a testing of our faith, and to see what we're going to do in it, whether we're going to break and fold and get carnal, or what, stay faithful to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and realize that, look, the situation may seem bad now, but if I just stand back and take a deep breath, the Lord will find a way for me to get out of this situation. And in the previous lesson I did similar on this topic, being vigilant because these spirits are getting bold. I've been in situations to where somebody did something to me, whether on the job or whatever, and it's just straight disrespect. And sometimes I had a flash out moment, but sometimes I just took a deep breath and gave it about 10 or 15 minutes, and I was like, okay, good. Now that I've had time to sit back and just use, wisdom on it, I'm calm. I'm glad I didn't do anything. And then, later on, 10 to 15 minutes later, whatever in the day, something happened to where it's like, okay, this person did this, but then, later on, this situation happened to where if I would have flashed out, I wouldn't have been in this better position that I'm in right now. A little example. Say you're in a parking lot and somebody cuts you off and takes a parking spot. You may get mad and want to blow the horn or anything, but what? Just stand back and drive somewhere else. And I've seen it happen before. I'll find a better parking spot closer, or as soon as I give up on that parking spot, somebody's gonna just magically pull out, and then I get the better parking spot. Again, everything is just a trying of our faith out here, and with this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, we have to be able to see the signs, see the signs in the spirit, but not give in to, the urges of the flesh.
And sometimes you're gonna have like the brother said about the month of April. Sometimes you're gonna be put in a position where you have no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
Back against the wall, and them demons coming strong. So you have to what to say, defend yourself at all costs, man. All right, and it is what it is. Sometimes it is what it is, man. And whether that be block or in our personal life, sometimes you be put in a position to where, hey, it is what it is. All right.
You got to put on the whole armor of faith, the breastplate, the shield, and the helmet, and the sword. And what are all these instruments of war? So what's it saying? It's going to be a war in the spirit. So you have to prepare yourself accordingly to fight these, demons and spirits and negative thoughts out here.
I can get it. I'm going to get it right here.
Con, you got it.
This is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. It says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, put on the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
And as it said, Con, you can keep reading too, but as it says in Peter's, what? The devil goeth about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And we can clearly see that we are at the end of this thing. So Satan is about to pull out all the stops and use all his tricks to get the elect, to sift the elect. You know, what did Yahushua tell Peter? You know, Satan desireth to sift thee. So again, as we mentioned earlier, you know, the Apostle Paul went through, he was a great man of the Lord and went through things. Yahushua told Peter, another great man of the Lord, that Satan desired to sift you. So how much more us in these times? You know, nobody is exempt from these demons, these thoughts, you know, these spirits out here to try to take us out. But again, we have this word, the breastplate, the helmet, the sword, and the shield of faith to be able to, you know, dodge those fiery darts and, you know, combat it out here.
Let's see. I'm looking for something real fast. I'm gonna get right. Let me see something. No. Sorry, I go back. But it's verse 11. It says Ephesians 6:11. It says, "Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, all right, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places."
Con, you know, the elder brother mentioned it at our last Friday camp. You know, the more you grow in the spirit, the more you're able to, you know, see things coming a mile away out here. I think you said it was almost like a situation slows down, and it's like you see everybody start moving. It's like, okay, that's a demon. This person's about to do this. But what am I going to do? Am I going to feed into it, or am I going to maneuver and get myself out of the situation, you know, the best that I can? Like I can give another recent example. I was at the store, and of course it was the end of, you know, she's coming with her basket, and, you know, I'm trying to get around this way. You know, there's enough space. But of course, instead of Eve going this way, Eve goes that way and damn near brushes against me. Like I could see in the back of my head, it's like, okay, I can already tell that, you know, the play this demon's gonna make. It really is it really is like that out here, you know. But again, you know, with the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, you're able to, you know, see it and, you know, prepare yourself accordingly and maneuver ahead of the way. Because again, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. And, you know, another thing that, you know, really helps me in a lot of situations is to realize that, look, unless it's somebody, you know, you have prior history with, most of the people out here that are assholes or rude to you, you've never seen them before in your life, you're probably never going to see them again. So what? It's not personal. It's demons on them, just trying to fuck with you in that moment to try to get you off kilter.
Yeah, I call them damn NPCs, man. The NPCs pop up at the right moment, the right time, just for that short little cameo of your life, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's like, I'm making little small examples, but, you know, they've just been happening recently. It's like you're in a rush to get somewhere. Like, you know, we have our conferences during the week, and I was trying to get something to eat beforehand. So I go there, and of course, there's somebody that doesn't know what they want to order standing in line for about 5 to 8 minutes just when I happen to get there. But every other time I'm able to get in there and get out of there. Little moments like that, even to medium and bigger moments, are going to happen. And really, at this point, you got to anticipate for them to happen. You know, every time we walk out of that door, you know, out of your front door, you should always be throwing up prayers before you do so. But hey, we're in this spiritual battlefield out here.
Yeah, we're in the, you know, like it says in like I think King David mentioned, man, in the Psalms. All right, we going in the valley of the shadow of death, man. All right, we faced with debt, demons, and all type of shit, man. So you have to be, you know, mentally prepared To go out, just to go outside, man. That's hell.
Con. And while we while we're not getting a heaping dose of the curses like the 2/3 are, we're still subject to them. And what's it saying? The curses, cursed shall ye be when you go out, cursed shall ye be when you come in. Your life will hang in the balance. When you go outside, you will wish to be inside, and when you're inside, you will wish to be outside. We're going to be in a constant state of flux until Yahweh comes and saves us. But going back to that Ephesians, we have all the spiritual armories and weaponry to, be able to navigate this spiritual war out here. And I was going to read that verse 13 real quick in Ephesians chapter 6. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. And they got that saying, knowing is half the battle. So going back to that Ephesians, whatever situation I find myself in, I therefore I am content. I'm able to use the understanding of these scriptures to know that I'm in a situation, so I'm going to maneuver accordingly.
I'm gonna get this other scripture too.
Con.
Oldie but goodie. All right, you have to put yourself in that mindset, because, like I say, all right, catching hell. Catching hell is only but for a moment, man. It only can last so long. All right, you always got to think back. If you don't notice, you got to think back to this scripture right here, man. It don't matter what it is. All right, it could be anything, whether it be a sickness. All right, maybe you plagued of the body. All right, you just plagued in all type of ways. You got to think of this scripture. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. It says, therefore, there has no temptation taking you, but such as common to man. But the Most High is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able.
Con. Hey, hey, that's a beautiful precept, because as it said, the Lord will not tempt you above your measure. This is a calming thought too. Every situation you're in, the Lord knows you can get through it. Like, he's not going to put you in any situation that's just going to completely consume you. So knowing that, no matter how dark and dire it may seem, the Lord has given you the ability to maneuver in it and ultimately overcome it for your better. And it's an honor for the Lord, as it said back in that Hebrews 12, to chastise us the way he does, because that means what? He sees us as his sons, as his children, not as a bastard out here. And growing up, everybody's got that one kid they knew who their parents didn't give a shit about. And it was like, man, he gets to stay out late, he gets to do this, that, or the other. But then when you saw the end results of that, you were like, man, I'm glad I had a structure from my physical parents that I did to, keep me in line. And as it says in Hebrews, again, how much more, the Heavenly Father, the chastisement he gives you is damn sure for your better out here. It's for your salvation. It's to ultimately receive that crown.
Right. It goes on to say, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it.
Con. But with the temptation, we'll make a way for you to escape, that ye may bear it. But how are you going to escape? To know that you're being tried in the moment, whatever it is, Jake.
I got the same. I got the same thing right here in the GNT.
Con. Because every situation we find ourselves in, if you sit back and look at it in the spirit, it's more often than not something we're dealing with in the flesh or dealing with in our spirit that we need to work on. And having the understanding that that's where Satan's going to hit those pressure points, we know that it's a test. We know that it's a trial of temptation. So we lean back on Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to be able to find that exit door to escape through.
Yeah, then like I said, I always tell brothers too, it's also about not putting yourself in the position to fall, to stumble. All right, not getting in your own way. All right, if you in a situation or around a bunch of 2/3, hey man, you got to think about where you at. You got to think about the people you keeping company with. You got to think about the things that you're doing. All right. I once told one brother, don't be what I said, don't be too long where you don't belong or something like that.
Con.
But it is what it is. Like, that's what we gotta constantly keep in our mind, all right? That we the ones, on Satan want us, man. He already had the 2/3. He don't want them. He already have them, you know.
Con.
I got it right here. It says, don't be long where you don't be long where you don't belong. All right. And that's a true statement, man. All right. Putting yourself in a position, all right, to where you come out unscathed. All right. You give the upper hand where you can win. All right. If you got it, like I tell these brothers too, this brother a witness to, and brothers didn't use some of the things, man. If you got to think up on a situation too hard, whether this is right or wrong, or whether I should be doing this or not, hey, you shouldn't be doing it, man.
Con.
That's that Romans 14,
Con. I got one to, back up the point you just made too.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Sirach chapter 27, verse 12. If thou be among the indiscreet, observe the time, but be continually among men of understanding.
Yep.
And we
because with men of understanding gonna correct you if you go off, man. Men of understanding, actually, men of understanding gonna keep you on the path too. Because if you constantly around them, you don't have time to do all the other extra shit, things of the world, all right, things of the flesh, all right. That's when you start to veer off. You got to constantly measure yourself. You have to constantly get to the point of being your own biggest critic, all right. That's the thing that has to be done too. Constantly examining. The scripture talks about us examining ourselves, man.
And I got the definition, the dictionary definition for that word indiscreet. It's got a lot of meat in it. Indiscreet describes someone lacking good judgment, caution, or discretion, often revealing secrets or acting inappropriately in public.
Yep.
And hey, bring up the drinking, for example. It's nothing wrong to have a drink here or there, but you should either be doing it in your tent or when you're around men of understanding. And even then, not overindulging in it. If you're out here just out in the public willy-nilly having a drink, that can lead to all kinds of spirits and all kinds of situations out here, especially being amongst the indiscreet or the niggas, these heathens, anybody. It implies being tactless, rash, having a mortal moment. You don't sit back and observe the situation you're in. You automatically go from 0 to 100 if somebody's disrespected you or you're put in an uncomfortable position. Or inconsiderate of consequences. You're not thinking ahead.
Yep. That's heavy, man.
And here's some synonyms for it: unwise, reckless, tactless, and imprudent.
Yeah,
So
you
hey,
can't be reckless, man.
Con.
Oh
no, you got it.
Yeah, we can't be reckless, man. All right. Every move that we make has to be a calculated move, all right? Because we in the times, man, one wrong move could be your last move, man. So you got to constantly, I always say before, you have to constantly think of this thing as if you're walking on eggshells, all right? You gotta get to the point, in some cases, second guessing things, all right? Not just walking out here just head first, head in the clouds, man. Oh, it can't happen to me. Well, go ahead, Doc.
That's the famous last words of everybody that it happens to. I remember I was watching a movie where a guy was going to a battle and he was talking to the guard at the door, and the guard told him something like, "Hey, hey, be safe out there." And he said, "I don't have any plans on dying today." And the guard told him, "No man does."
Yeah, man. If If you got that mentality, man, matter of fact, you're gonna die, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That makes me think about that. What they call it? That Murphy Law shit.
Kind of anything that can happen will happen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
especially, hey, we got the ultimate Murphy's Law with this truth. If you go put yourself in a situation with niggas out here, nigga shit is gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
It damn sure is gonna happen. If you go to unsavory parts of town, you deal with women with reputations, can't handle your drink. All these vices out here. Anything bad that can happen will happen. And again, we're not just like these people out here that are given over to Satan, that are Satan's playground. We have a standard to walk by, and that is what Satan is trying to break of every minute, of every hour, of every day out here. So he's manipulating situations and realities out here, pitfalls and traps for you to fall into to take you out.
Yeah. He has nothing else to do, man, but to try to get you. You know.
That's his whole job. Like, imagine your whole job is just to sift people out here. That's all the 24/7. That's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about what a family, a wife and the kids, working 2 to 3 jobs, fellowship, and your whole job is just to fuck with people. You're gonna be a master at it, and you're gonna have time to think about, oh, I'm gonna get him here. I'm gonna set up this there. I'm gonna be waiting in the cut like a lion in the thicket.
Yeah. I have that Sirac too.
Con. Before we go to that, could you get Sirach 18 verse 27, and then let me see. You can jump to 30 and read to 31. So Sirach 18:27, then verses 30 to 31, Baba Kasha.
27 and 30 and 31.
Uh Sirach 18 verse 27, and then verse 30 to 31.
Okay. This is Sirach 18 and 27. It says, "A wise man will fear in everything, and in the day of sinning, he will beware of offense. But a fool would not observe the time." Observe.
Khan, as it says in Proverbs, a prudent man, foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but a fool passeth on and is punished. A wise man with this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding will fear in everything, as you just said. Out here, we got to be walking on eggshells, but doubly so now, we got to be walking on the eggshells that are on top of the eggshells. So imagine that. And in the day of sinning, he will beware of offense. Anything that you know is a sin according to the scriptures, or any situation you can perceive out here that could lead you to going off, you got to beware that, look, this could be my final move out here on the chessboard. The brother in Dallas, GMS Rome Lines on Fire, made a beautiful point. We don't know how much grace and mercy the Lord has allotted to us. You may be doing good for a while and think you have a little bit of leeway, but for all you know, that situation you find yourself in could be the last straw before the Lord, completely gives you over, to, your destruction out here. But a fool will not observe the time, and back in Proverbs will go on and be punished.
You said 30.
Verses 30 to 31.
Yeah, 30 says, "Go not after thy lusts, but refrain thyself from thy appetites." It says, "If thou givest thy soul the desire that please her, she will make thee a laughing stock to thy enemies that what it is,
Malign thee,
malign thee." It's like,
which, if somebody maligns you, that means they don't like you. They're looking for your fall. But as it says, go not after thy lusts, but refrain thyself from thine appetites. In Proverbs 23, it says, if you sup with a rich man, put the knife to your throat and don't eat of his delicacies. And Esau, he's that rich man right now, and he's created an entire society that is predicated upon sinning. Everything is contrary to the law, statutes, and commandments, and is made easy. That's the easiest thing in the world to do. Your appetites are available to you 24/7. So that just makes it that much harder out here, to walk the straight and narrow path, and makes it that much more, uh, imperative that we follow after the law, statutes, and commandments and lean back on Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. If thou givest thy soul the desires that please her, she will make thee a laughing stock to thine enemies that malign thee. Here you are, you know, chastising other people out here and preaching after the Lord, but then, you fall off and go back into the world and, just become a complete joke out here, or what? The Lord judges you in the worst way possible.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen, man. You don't want to be that guy,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you didn't have anything, we can close it out in that Sirach too.
Oh, all right, on deck. This is Sirach chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in the time of trouble."
Khan, hey, prepare if you come to serve the Lord. That's on the dotted line. That there's going to be temptations, trials and tribulations, and to prepare yourself accordingly. Set thy heart or thy mind aright, and constantly. It didn't say, it says constantly endure. It doesn't say, oh, endure on the weekends when the camera's on, endure 2 to 3 days out of the week. No, constantly endure every minute of every hour of the day of these days, and make not haste in the time of trouble. When you're put in an uncomfortable position, you start squirming. You start leaning on the flesh instead of leaning on the spirit. You're not content in the situation you're in, and you don't know how to abound or abase yourself accordingly.
Okay. It says, "Cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at the last end."
Khan. And that last end we're ultimately looking to be increased in is what? Being beamed up onto the chariots and that crowning ceremony, hearing that good job from the Lord. But what? In these little moments we have right now, and we are constantly getting increased, getting built up to that moment. Abarat is hour of that number. We go through these trials and tribulations, and if we endure that fire, that steel, that spiritual steel has been tempered and is that much stronger and harder to break.
Right. It says, "Where whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed into a low estate."
Again, whatever situation you find yourself in, I learn how to abound myself and to abase myself. I take it cheerfully, whatever situation I'm in, because I have this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in me. And as long as I don't go contrary to that, the Lord, however long it may take, will find a way for me to get out of it. And we got to expect to have high and low points in this truth. That's the balance of things.
Yeah, it goes on to say, "For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of affliction."
Khan, going to that Zephaniah, it talks about, that 1/3 that's going to be brought through the fire and tried and refined like the gold. So what? We want to be that gold and that silver that's going through the fire right now, and ultimately make it through it. So we can be those acceptable men of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Brothers always bring up the example of a jeweler, or somebody that works in gold and silver and all that. They know that the gold and the silver is purified when they can see their reflection in it. And that's ultimately what we're looking for, is for the reflection of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to be seen in us.
I got a precept to go with this.
Khan, you got it.
This is 1 Corinthians chapter 3. I'm going to start at 10, 12 as a point. It says, "According to the grace of the Most High, which is given unto me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, another builded thereon. But let every man take heed how he builded thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay then that is laid, which is Yahushua Mashiach. Now everything else is the point right here. 13, 12 and 13 is the point. It says, now if any man build upon this foundation, gold, silver, precious stone, wood, hay, stubble, every man work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire.
God.
Fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is.
God, the fire's going to try every work of what sort it is. And if you keep reading, it talks about the gold and the silver enduring, but the wood, the hay, and the stubble and the tin getting burnt up. And it talked about what? Building upon that foundation, which is the foundation of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, that unmovable foundation, that rock. And if you build, your foundation on any other type of thing outside of that, you're that wood, that hay, that stubble, that's going to get blown down, burnt up, and just consumed out here.
I got another one, a quick one.
This
is Isaiah chapter 47, verse 10. It says, behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction.
God, I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. This fire that we have to go through to be purified. Back in Sirach chapter 2, verse 5, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. So the Lord's telling you right there, only the acceptable men, only the hard, only the, I'm trying to think of that scene in 300 where they said only the hard, only the brave are worthy enough to be Spartans, but only the acceptable men are going to go through the fire and make it. So brothers, if you're going through trials and tribulations out here, the Lord looks at you as an acceptable man. He looks at you as that gold and that silver, and he's preparing you to rule in the world to come for eternity. And the best rulers are those that have, the life experience, the practical experience.
It reminds me, let me see, I'm get it right here. Yeah, I got it right here. This is Hebrews. This is Hebrews chapter 12, verse.
We've been quoting that Hebrews all night.
I'm gonna get to the point. 6 and 7 says, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and scourges every son whom he receive. If ye endure chastening, the Most High dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he? For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not?
But a bastard. Hey, it's an honor. Oh, you got it.
It says in the next one, it says, but if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, even are ye bastards and not sons.
Hey, whereof all are partakers, that wide way, the wide path that leadeth to destruction, where the majority of our people, and these heathens don't have any part in that, but the majority of people in general are going down. But what? We're on that narrow path, which it comes with strict laws and orders and chastisement, which, with sheep, the shepherd, if the sheep goes out of the path, what? He strikes them in the head with that rod to keep them on the straight path. Because if they stray too far away, they may fall into a ditch and break their leg or get taken by the wolves out here. So Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is keeping us on that straight path. And we, again, having this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, we know that the trials and tribulations we're going through is ultimately for our better. And, to try us as those acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. And we can't get burnt up out here, especially how close we are to the end. And as it says in 2nd Ezra 7, it talks about that narrow path where only one man could go through at a time. But once you get through that narrow path, you get to that broad field where a city is builded, the kingdom.
That's right.
But you can read the verse 8, and then you can jump down to verse.
Where you want me at?
Sirach 2. I think we're at verse 6. You can read down to verse 8, and then jump to jump to 14 and read it to 18, and that should be it.
Yeah, it says verse 6, it says, believe in him, and he will help thee, order thy way aright, and trust in him. It says, ye that fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, and go not aside, lest ye fall. It says, ye that fear the Lord, believe him, and your reward shall be your reward shall not fail.
Khan, and believe in him and he will help thee. Order thy way aright. Learn to be contented in whatever situation you're in, whether you need to abound yourself or abase yourself, and trust in him. Ye that fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, the faith and the patience of the saints. Because as we've been saying throughout the lesson, the Lord may leave you in that fire for a minute, to burn out those impurities and to build up your strength. But you can't, just completely be consumed by it. And go not aside, lest ye fall. Ye that fear the Lord, believe in him, and your reward shall not fail. Your little rewards of making it out of these situations and building yourself up in the spirit, but that ultimate reward we're going towards, the kingdom and being of the first fruits.
It goes on to say,
You can jump down to verse 14.
at 14 it says, Khan, what you about to say?
Oh, I'm just saying you could jump down to 14 unless you wanted to read the next verse.
Yeah, I jumped down to 14. 14 says, woe unto you that have lost patience, and what will ye do when the Lord shall visit you?
Hey, woe or destruction unto you that have lost patience. What will ye do when the Lord shall visit you? What will happen when that fire hits your works of wood and hay and tin and these baser things? It's going to be completely consumed out here. You're going to go into Jacob's trouble with no hedge at all. You're probably going to get the chip, and you're ultimately going to get burned by that nuclear fire. You're going to be those two parts in the land that's going to go through the fire and be consumed.
Right. What is this? 36. Yeah. And it goes on to say, all right, they that fear the Lord will not disobey his word, and they that love him will keep his ways.
Kind of putting on that whole armor, breastplate, helmet, shield and sword of faith.
Right.
You
And it
got
goes on. It says, they that fear the Lord shall seek that which is well pleasing unto him, and they that love him shall be filled with the law.
kind.
They that fear the Lord will prepare their hearts and humble their souls in his sight, saying, we will fall into the hands of the Lord and not the hands of men. All right, for his majesty is so is his mercy.
And as you say all the time, we control the tempo out here. You know, we have this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and know how to maneuver around these people out here. So what? We're going to fall into the hands of the Lord and rely on everything he's given us in these spiritual guidelines to go through, and what? Not rely on our flesh and try to get our licks out here, so to speak. Try to get these carnal victories, because that is Satan's playground, and he's definitely out here waiting to get you caught up.
Oh yeah.
Even more so now as we see the day approaching.
Con.
But you had anything you wanted to bring out or say out?
Nah, that's pretty much it, bro. Straight to the
Con,
point.
con. Hey, so with that, to you sincere Akim and Akwat out there, we hope you're edified. But before we get out of here, again, as always, we're going to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure to the end. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.